It does.
I would like to call to order the meeting of the Academic Affairs Committee of NMU. And present, we have committee members, Trustee Savoy, Trustee Holmquist, ex officio Trustee Young, and ex officio President Schilling, and some other trustees who will not be participating in the meeting. First up, we have Dr. Norma Froelich to give us the Academic Senate update. Good morning.
Good morning.
I think it's on. What people do is tap it a little.
Yeah.
There we go.
I should know that from classes. But so good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to give you an update again on the activities of the Academic Senate this year. My written report does have a detailed listing of activities of the Senate and Senate standing committees, and I'll highlight a few pieces today. One of the major responsibilities of the Senate is recommending curriculum changes to the provost. So far, based on proposals compiled and reviewed by the Committee on Undergraduate Programs and the Graduate Programs Committee, Senate made recommendations for 13 revised courses, 4 new courses, and 13 revised programs, 4 new courses, and 18 revised courses. We expect a lot more proposals in the next month or two, as the two curriculum committees both frequently work over the winter break to review proposals from academic departments. The Senate Ad Hoc Calendar Committee also recommended 3 years of academic calendars that are part of the formal recommendations before the board later this morning. Following a question from the Senate floor during our debate, we revised the proposal to rename Thanksgiving recess to fall recess to be more inclusive and respectful, particularly of Native experiences. Senate's also had several invited presentations on topics including enrollment and retention numbers, the interim strategic plan, NCAA proficiency standards, and Google accounts, as well as a more informal visit by President Schilling and Fessel. Big part of what I want to say today is that Senate would not be as strong a mechanism for shared governance without the excellent work of roughly 90 faculty members, plus a number of staff and students who serve on Senate's 11 standing committees. Some of the projects they've grappled with this semester include review of applications and recommendations of awardees of reassigned time awards, faculty research grants, teaching conference grants, and technology improvement awards. Allocation of library budgets, particularly addressing the crunch between decreasing budget and increasing costs for subscriptions to things like journals and other materials. A review of roughly 120 assessment reports of the Gen Ed program. Those covered the social responsibility in a diverse world, integrative thinking, and human expression components of the Gen Ed program. Development of resources for international students, including a dedicated website for information and increased availability of scholarships. Development of strategies for faculty development activities and continued oversight of peer observation of teaching. Review of new courses and faculty in the honors program. And lastly, maintaining and improving our library, not just as a place to check out books, but as a space that supports teaching and learning, mental health and wellness, and student experience and sense of belonging at Northern. I'm specifically mentioning this today, as there have been concerns in the last day about how the most recent versions of plans for renovations to the library may affect whether and how the library can provide an important inclusive space that supports all students. Before I wrap up, I do want to thank President Schilling for her leadership in the last 8 years. Carrie, last night you mentioned you thanked faculty and staff for teaching you as a student and during your time as faculty, as dean, as provost, and president. And I think I speak on behalf of most faculty members and students, and especially on behalf of current and recent Senate members, that we have learned so much from you, from your persistence, your perspective, your compassion, your kindness, humility throughout your tenure as provost and now president. And I do also want to thank Provost Kapla. You had big shoes to fill, Dale, and you continue to provide important perspective and guidance to the Senate this last year. We look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Lastly, Senate will continue to meet bi-weekly. If anyone from the Board of Trustees is interested in joining the Senate at one of our meetings or learning about any of the Senate standing committees, please consider this an open invitation. I'll take any questions you've got now.
Any questions?
I do have one. The comment that you made about the library and the plans for the library. I assume that there will be a lot more involvement in the development and that you'll be able to work with the folks who are doing the design.
I believe so. There is a planning committee that sits external to the Senate. And I'm not part of that. I'm not really sure what has or hasn't happened. I've just kind of, what I know about it now is, well, not much more than what I said. So I've just heard a lot of the comments from people that have looked at those plans and had questions about it. So
Thank you. I do appreciate you bringing that forward.
That is, any other questions?
No question.
Thank you, Norma. We appreciate you and all you do for what the Senate does also. Thank you.
And I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to the full board the academic calendars that are to be put on the formals.
I second that.
Motion carried. Next up, we have Dr. Casey Holder with the charter schools.
Good morning. Thank you, Claudia, for 2 hours of the Board of Trustees time. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm down to 9 minutes and I'm going to be talking fast. So if I need to clarify anything, do not hesitate to interrupt me because I'll be happy to do so. So just if you've got a clarifying question, jump in. So first thing first, as you're all well aware, there's been a change in the political landscape in the state that might cause some negative publication, not negative press on charter schools are authorizing. So just be aware of that. It might be coming down the pipe. There are a lot of new laws that are being proposed. We'll comply, you know, that's what we do. We comply with laws. And so that leads into my actual memo that was forwarded. And the first thing is a compliance issue. We just finished our assurances and verification visit in October. Very successful visit. 12 of 16 areas were rated at the best that they could be rated. So I'm pretty stoked about that. Their job is to find things to work on. They found them, so we'll work on them. Trends. So number 2 and 3 trends. Trends and assessment in the nation and then locally in the state. So the MAP test that we have our schools take is the nationally normed test. They just recently did a research study and they were actually examining test scores from pre-pandemic, the spring of 19 to the test scores of now, so 2022. And they found that 5 ethnic reporting categories, so Asians, white, Hispanic, Black, American Indians, all have reduced their median percentiles have dropped. So all 5 ethnic categories have dropped. Another thing they found, which is even more alarming, is that the Hispanic, Black, and American Indian students have even dropped more than the Asian and white students in their national data set. That's important to recognize because our portfolio consists of approximately 75% students of color. Literally, we have about just under 15% Hispanic students, 45% Black African American students, and 15% American Indian students. So if you're at a holiday party and somebody's saying, hey, what's your portfolio like? About 3 or 4 students are students of color. And they are oftentimes the students that are hardest hit when it has come to achievement test data. That said, a second not so great newsworthy issue from their research has found a second thing. And what it is if we took 100 people and lined them up from the least tall to the tallest, we could rate those people on how tall they are. At the 10th, 45th, 50th, 75th, and 90th percentiles are kind of common indicators to look at. So you could say, you know, what does the 10th percentile look like? What does the interquartile range look like, where that's the 25th to the 75th? That's almost everybody falls, not everybody, but a lot of people fall in that category. What they found, and I didn't include this because I have the dashboards included, is that every single group has dropped. So 30 out of 30 reporting categories in 3 grade levels has reduced. So whether you're a student at the 10th percentile, 25th, 50th, 75th, or 90th, in general, those percentiles have slidden down since 2019. So in the nation, our achievement has slidden some. What's more alarming is that the bottom, the 10th percentile, has slidden the most. And so there used to be this thing called the achievement gap. Well, currently there is evidence supporting that the achievement gap is now widened because the students in the 10th percentile have decreased more than the students anywhere else in the continuum. Why does that matter? Our portfolio. When you look at the demographics of our portfolio, we overrepresent students in the 10th percentile. So what that means, we have approximately 18% of our student portfolio is in the 10th percentile. So talking point number one, 3 out of 4 students are people of color. Talking point number 2, 1 out of 5 of our students is actually in the 10th percentile on the nationally normed test. Those students are also hard hit. So it's a privilege to get to try to reach those students, but that's the reality of our portfolio. Now, a little closer to home, from the state perspective, there's recently been a newsworthy post that the Michigan Department of Ed state superintendent wrote, state test scores improved for a majority of Michigan school districts. 55% have improved in ELA and 55% in math. Well, that's great until you turn the page and actually look a little bit deeper in our own state. And in our own state, 11 of 14 reporting categories have actually decreased in the percent proficient in the state. So I'll say that again. More districts are improving, but our overall percent proficient is decreasing. So a lot of it depends on how you look at it. So that leads to our portfolio and the dashboards that you have in front of you. When it comes to our portfolio, the results are kind of what I would anticipate. And so basically, when I look at the academics, they are where they should be. We have very high standards for our academics. That doesn't mean, oh, first of all, remember, purple is above, exceeds expectations. Green is meeting our expectations. Yellow is a meeting with me and the school leader. Orange is a meeting with me, the school leader, and the board president. And red is an action plan. So if they get a red on that dashboard, they have to write how they're going to improve that practice. And so when I look at it, academics are where they should be. In finances, 3 of our schools had unaudited annual reports. So what that means is that their external auditor has not submitted the audit back to the school yet. So we're working on that. That's not the school's fault. And so we've used school-based numbers to actually color code those areas. Also remember that NHA schools will have more reds because they operate on a different, their unrestricted days cash is always going to be red. That's okay because NHA as a corporation fully funds them. So we recognize those. Organizational health and performance, all yellows and greens. Compliance, we had a couple of reds, which both reds and compliance were due to the school having a new compliance officer hired. So we've been reflective and said, that's partly our problem. We haven't communicated well enough. And so now we've instituted a semi-annual touch point. So we have, my compliance coordinator is now going to be hosting a Zoom with the 9 schools compliance coordinators every September 1st-ish and January 1st-ish, because we kind of took that as, well, it's their responsibility to submit things, but it's also our responsibility to make sure they can submit them. So we've put that into place. The last one on the dashboard is state accountability. And in general, those have, those coming back to the memo, the bottom of the memo has a comment on state accountability and the index scores. And the bad news, if you look at it as bad, is that 3 of our schools have been identified from the state as requiring some additional services. So The good news is that none of our schools are on the bottom two levels. They're on the top two levels of support. So that's either a targeted support or an additional support. The worst things are comprehensive support or partnership districts. And so what those mean is that those schools will have to do some extra paperwork, but they also get additional resources, which given our student portfolio is actually a good thing because they are going to be helping provide resources to better improve chances that our students are succeeding. So I look at that as a good thing, although it might come across publicly that, wow, we have not 3 schools who are on that list. I would argue that that's a good thing. So before I go off of the dashboards, are there any questions that I could take on the dashboards?
I just have a question. What was blue again?
So
Sorry.
blue is exceeds, that's above what we expect.
Okay,
Green is expected. Yellow is a conference with me and the school leader. Orange is a conference with me, the school leader, and the board president. And red is an action plan that's required by the board and school leader.
okay. So, oh, sorry. So South Point Scholars Academy, they did have their audit?
Yes, off the top of my head, I would have to say
It's
yes.
blue.
Yes,
It says favorable. Okay.
yes.
I just saw the unrestricted days cash.
Yes, and that's, so they are an NHA school, so that's why they have a red, and so they're managed by NH. And that's even, let me restate this, because one of the political things that you might get some negative press on is this for-profit charter schools. There's no such thing as a for-profit charter school. There's a for-profit management company. National Heritages is a for-profit management company. Totally legit by law, totally everything's above board in that sense. The 3 NHA schools that we have are Walton, Burton, and South Point, and they will always have reds on unrestricted days cash because the management company is the flow-through dollars. So our school might only have 2% of a fund balance, but if they run out of cash, the NHA would back them.
Are you worried about any of these results in terms of the
Long-term.
long-term, right?
No, because the yellows are continuous improvement. So
Right,
that's
right.
no. So there's very few oranges and reds that are not very explainable
Okay.
this year and or also already being worked on. So no, I am not worried about the dashboard at all.
Anybody else?
Any other questions on the dashboard before I go on?
No, I only questioned the colors as well, so I appreciate that clarification.
Awesome. So last couple of things are ending on a positive note. Shout out to Gavin and the scholarship committee. So if you haven't heard, we now have an official charter school office. PSA stands for Public School Academy, or otherwise charter school. So a CSO PSA alumni scholarship. So we have sent 9 letters out to our high school seniors who are eligible to receive up to $1,500 renewable for 4 years. So a $6,000 scholarship for these students, which is huge. And that's as a shout out to some work through the finance department and the scholarship committee. So we're looking toward hopefully increasing that by potentially tapping into our K-8 market. Because as you probably aware, the vast majority of our students are K-8, which leads to my second super cool thing is in May, we're going to be running our Young Wildcat Scholars program again, which if you're not aware, we bring about 350 sixth graders and their school staff chaperones to campus for a little mini college experience. They take classes, they eat in the dorm, they eat and live in the dorms. So it's a really cool thing that we had to drop for the pandemic. So that's all scheduled to take place in May. So that's working with admissions. We're trying to hopefully figure out a way to maybe tap into a better way to track some of those because we lose all those 8th graders when they just go to high school. And we really kind of, without sending a mass email to all students, did you attend one of our charter schools? We don't really know if any of those students are here or not. So the last but not least, and in fact, the last and one of the most important talking points that I would say if you're at a holiday party, One of our schools was just recently notified by MLive, and the Education Trust Midwest has run a report that identified 5 schools that they're calling Building the Hope. And one of them was ours. And it's Walton in Pontiac, Michigan. And Walton serves Hispanic, is primarily Hispanic, Spanish-speaking community. And they were identified as one of 5 schools in the state, which is outperforming what they would be expected to perform. And so that is extremely noteworthy from our portfolio. And not only are all of our schools, in my opinion, doing things that are similar and building the hope, they at least have been recognized at the state level. With that, do I have any other questions or clarifications that I can address?
Congratulations on the Building the Hope recognition and the scholarships. That's awesome. Anybody have any questions?
Just as ex officio, I just want to say, I've gone to those schools with Casey. We are incredibly lucky to have this man in this job. He's phenomenal. We walk in that school, even the little kids know who he is. So he really walks his talk.
That's great.
Well, I was going to throw out the actual compliment to the president, but given that, I can't top it other than say right back at you. It's been a privilege and an honor to work for you. So thank you.
Thanks, Casey.
And have a good, happy holidays.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
So next up, we have Mr. Christopher McMaster. They are going to give us a presentation on what is a cold case. This is going to be interesting.
Reading autopsies.
Morning, everybody. So it's great to be here with you. My name is Chris McMaster. I'm an instructor in the Criminal Justice Department here at Northern. And it's just a pleasure to be with you. And we're here to share with you a new initiative that was developed over the past year, including which is a partnership, a collaborative partnership with the Michigan State Police. And the Michigan State Police approached us about a year ago about the problem of cold cases that exist in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. There are approximately 23 actual cold case homicides in the UP. So that is the problem that needs to be addressed with limited resources for all police agencies across the nation. Michigan State Police, while they have vast resources available in their department, they are limited. So what I'm here to talk with you about is our new initiative that we developed with the Michigan State Police as part of this collaborative project. And through this, developed into a class that we first offered here this past semester here at Northern. And so before we start, I want to formally introduce 2 of our students that were in our class this past semester. We have Anastina Kesty over to your right. And Anastina is a forensic biochemistry major. She's from the Keweenaw area, Calumet. And Anastina is graduating tomorrow. So yeah, exciting day. And then secondly, we have another one of our students, Aiden Pasco, to my right. And Aiden is a criminal justice major with a minor in cyber security. So Aiden is from the Marquette area, and Aiden too is graduating tomorrow morning. So congratulations. And so as we begin, I'd like to turn things over to Aiden here, and he's going to kind of start walking you through the process. We're really going to be focusing on two areas, really the collaborative partnership with the Michigan State Police, as well as explaining the process of what our students experienced. And keeping in mind the case that we were assigned from the state police, it remains a confidential matter. We were not able to disclose any aspects of the actual case to the public. So thank you.
Good morning and welcome everybody. I'd like to start off by posing the question of what is a cold case. A cold case is essentially a criminal investigation case that comes to a stop. There could be many reasons which a case would come to a stop, but primarily it's because of lack of actionable leads that can take investigators forward in the case. So the first step in working on a cold case is establishing a team. This picture here is our team. Us students were selected in the last semester, spring of 2022, and were put through an interview process that involved background investigations conducted by the state police, fingerprinting, which was conducted at the Nagani State Police Post, and the signing of non-disclosure agreements by every one of us students. So our goal as a team was to put fresh eyes on a cold case homicide, and get new perspectives on what a case that has gone cold for many years. So the next step as a team is that we needed to find a secure space on campus where all of the files, all of the meetings, and all of the deliberations could take place. So pictured here is the meeting / office room that we have situated in the Criminal Justice Department. This room is under constant surveillance by the NMU Police Department and is under lock and key, which is managed by the professors and other few people within the department. And this amount of security is necessary to protect the integrity of the case and also the identity of the victim out of respect for their family. This case that we were given was developed over numerous decades in an analog format. This case came from a time when computers were not widely used as a reporting and data management mechanism. So we had the collective goal of digitizing this entire case file. And through digitizing this entire case file, this amounted to us analyzing 2 tote bins worth of many decades of information and scanning it. We're using an OCR scanner, which is an optical character recognition scanner. So this is a huge step for the investigation, as the OCR scanner recognizes characters placed on the documents that are legible and uploads it to a computer. So now the state that the investigation or the case is in is that the state police or any other investigators can now retrieve the documents on their phone or laptop and be able to search up keywords such as persons, places, or other identifiable word terms that can reference them to specific documents that were scanned in the case. So yeah, and then I'll pass it back to Chris.
All right, just to point out, this is our diverse team at work in the cold case file room, the secure area that we have as our designated space. So pictured here, as you can see, is Anastina working on the whiteboard. We have a large whiteboard, double-sided whiteboard in our room, which is really used extensively as a way to communicate between the various teams that were formed amongst the 8 students that were brought into the class. And this was really a helpful way of communicating important information or theories that were brought about, or any key information that really needed to be announced to all the students through this process. So, and then we have Abby Claire just behind Anastina, who's a post-baccalaureate student in interdisciplinary studies, who's actually here with us today. Autumn, who is a criminal justice major, she's seated in the background. She is graduating tomorrow as well. And then we have Olivia up in the upper right corner here. Olivia is a dual forensic anthropology and criminal justice major. And Olivia also is graduating tomorrow morning. So, so our students are researchers taken to the task of analyzing the case. So they know they're not investigators, but they are researchers. And they left no stone unturned in the case that we were assigned. Their excitement and enthusiasm, it was truly infectious. It was incredible to watch them work every day. And so, you know, through this process, we also very importantly remained victim focused, because that's what we were here for. So, all right, I'll turn things over to Anastina.
All right, so the UP homicide case that we were assigned has been cold for decades, which means that there were few investigative leads during this time. So we reviewed the case with fresh eyes to say, and our collective knowledge and questions simply weren't enough. So we engaged experts based on the questions we discovered and our need to know more. So this expert here is Lisa Orovitz Burling. She's a forensic scientist over at the Michigan State Police Biology Unit over in the Marquette Crime Lab. We had needed her expertise on the case because of leads involving potential DNA evidence. The evidence suggested that further DNA testing could be done with newly available DNA technology, such as more advanced PCR analysis. And Lisa is just one of the experts that we used in this case. They were instrumental in our understanding. So we also thought it was very important to get a better and deeper context as to where the crime occurred. So we made the decision with the Criminal Justice Department to go to the area where the victim's remains were found, so that we could get a better understanding of where this case took place. We felt it was very important for us to get a sense of the space and the community, and we felt that this connected us to the victim, the family, and the story of the case. We're engaged in a structured, purposeful course. This isn't a club, and this isn't something that we're doing in our spare time. The seriousness and the weight of the work required that we have a dedicated and predictable time and space to work. Pictured here is the team after we had met with experts, visited the site, and we're discussing what we should do next in the case. In the end, we're doing all of this work because this is as real as it gets.
Shown here is the victim's gravesite. This is why we want to seek justice and closure, because the victim and the victim's family are real people. Behind the plants in the photograph is the victim's headstone. We've pictured it this way to protect the anonymity of the victim. Our students are getting hands-on experience with real cases while helping families find justice. Our first cold case we examined has led to numerous potentially actionable leads, which the state police will carefully review upon full completion of this course. So this is indeed as real as it gets. Our students are engaged in impactful research, and I could not be more proud of the dedication and hard work of all the students that were part of this class. And so now, tell us what you'd like to learn more about. We'd love to hear. We certainly can ask, well, first off, why NMU? And the Michigan State Police, as I mentioned earlier, approached the Criminal Justice Department about a year ago about this collaborative partnership because they saw the success at similar universities such as Western Michigan University and Michigan State University. And the need existed with 23 cold case homicides in the Upper Peninsula.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, I'm a lawyer, and so I think, okay, let's suppose that this leads to an arrest. Is there any question about you think chain of evidence? I mean, we all watch TV, right? I mean, I'm not a criminal lawyer at all. I don't do that kind of stuff. I just watch it on TV. But you think, chain of evidence, is there any issues at all with having this leave the police department for some piece of it?
That has been not an issue at this point. They've consulted with prosecutors and that. So we did not have access to actual evidence. So
Okay.
that's a chain of custody issue.
Okay, right.
Yeah, those are props. And it's a great question.
Okay.
And you're just segueing me into my next point. So the case that we were assigned actually was 2 bins full of various documents, lab reports, interviews, transcripts of phone calls. The list just goes on. It's incredible. And there were binders just in there from various times over the past numerous decades where the case was picked up and worked on. And so our students sifted through all that material all in an analog format. We were able to completely digitized the entire case file, photographs, transcripts of various recordings involved with the case. So the actual case, the police report, and again, it's just a prop, it's not actually, but is the binder on the top. As you can see, it's quite thick, and that is a mock of the size of the report that our students had to examine and go through and analyze and research and try to find the needle in the haystack, the hidden needle in the haystack, so to speak. So any other questions?
So this is
I'll make a comment because Dale that's actually how I met Dale. I was in his cold case class.
Okay.
I had an interview for it, really, But and the seriousness of it is so profound. And but for me, the biggest takeaway, which Bob and I talked about, was understanding the process. Because I used to flippantly say, we don't have a lot of homicides up here, but we never solve any of them. Well, when I understood the process and the need for the evidence in order to move forward and assure that somebody was going to get prosecuted, it opened a whole different lens for me.
Yeah.
So this work is just phenomenal. And I just compliment all of you involved in it, because it takes a lot of work to put a class like this on.
And I'm gonna have Aiden step up and maybe comment on the interactions with the state police detectives.
Yeah, absolutely. Since we can't name any specifics about the case detective we are interacted with, as well as the Lieutenant Paul Campbell, were very helpful in guiding us through this process. This was a building process for this case. This was the first semester that we put this on. So we were trying to work through the mud and get everything framed for the next classes so they can start off on the right foot and be organized and work efficiently and get through all of it. And like I said, the state police was very helpful in getting us through this. The detective that was associated with this case clarified numerous questions about details regarding the case. He was always very willing to cooperate with us, always on call if we needed him, was able to help show us the location of the associated case. And it was a really well, it was a well-designed cooperation we had with the state police.
Did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair Fatanti. I was talking earlier to Chris, but my daughter just completed the class at Michigan State down there. And this is a tremendous program, and credit to you, because I know how much work goes into this and how much time she put in. So I'm sure it's the same with you, and this is just such a great program. And it also comes at a time when there's tremendous need for people in these fields. So there's great career opportunities for students to participate in these programs as well. And to Tammy's point, sorry, I got a frog in my throat. The things that she had to go through, my daughter, relative to the evidence, they couldn't take anything out of the room. It was all under lock and key. I mean, there's some very strict protocols that are undertaken in terms of the evidence and trying to protect the victim and whatnot. So it's a really interesting program. I didn't know we had this here until I saw this and saw this is really cool. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
So I was gonna ask, but I heard that President Schuling had to interview to get in the class. So what's the prerequisites to being able to get in this class? Because I'm guessing they have to do, I know you said there are background checks and all this, but
Yeah, so we interviewed, and then based on if you went like that interview process, you were selected, then you went and fingerprinted, had the
Okay.
background check, and then signed the non-disclosure. So it was like an interview process months previous to the semester starting.
so is this like a senior class in criminal justice?
It's in criminal justice, it counts for forensic biochemistry, it counts for forensic anthro, it counts for all of the, like the 4 majors that we have. It's like an elective credit for my major at least.
The diversity of skill is what's essential to this. Like Anestina, she knows more about the forensic evidence than any of us can be able to. And when she presented on it, it was essentially, it was nothing that was in our like criminal justice students comprehension. It's so having insight like that is critical in moving these cold cases
And I
forward.
think that's one of the best lessons that we learned was communicating and having a group
Mhm.
that we could like work with, because we all have different backgrounds, so we were able to like bounce ideas, see different perspectives, that sort of thing was super needed in developing tips and that sort of thing.
And then the converting analog to digital, did that take an IT person or was anybody can just?
Well, I can comment on that, because, I can tell you, the network operations center was integral in getting our system. We have to have a private network system only for this group of students and the instructors, and they were awesome putting that together for us. Really another collaborative effort, bringing in area of the university, Casey at Network Operations Center. So yes, that part of the digitization process was these high-speed scanners, putting all that material, annotating all the documents, a huge undertaking for our students. And then it ultimately will be turned back over to the state police in a couple different formats as a single document. We put on, as Aiden mentioned, on a cell phone, the entire case report. Or it can be, it will also be given back to the state police in an annotated format and with categories. So, yeah, that answered your question.
Chair Patante, I do have one quick question, excuse me.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
No, I know, I'm like, but this is fascinating and I can imagine as a student that there would be a lot of interest. So you mentioned you had to go through an interview process. I think there were 7 or 8 students, I'm not quite sure, that were actually part of the case. How many students wanted to participate
I
in
think
that?
there was around, we had roughly 30 to 35 actual people that actually put a formal application
Okay.
in. So, yeah.
And for next semester?
Yep, we've already selected our group of 8 students. We've stuck with the number 8. That's a kind of an ideal number. We wish we could bring more in, but the capacity and just what we're doing here, it's just really important to keep that small number to really be effective. And as we start out at any rate, we may be able to expand that, but really we have to proceed cautiously, so.
Can I ask what the students are doing after graduation?
I'm moving to Madison, Wisconsin. I have a job lined up with Millipore Sigma, which is a big chemistry company. I'll be working in an organic lab essentially.
And in January, I'll be moving to DC. I'll be attending grad school at George Washington University in their security policy studies program.
Congratulations to you both.
So final exam, is it like come up with what you think happened, or is the final exam presentation?
That's a great
question.
It is. Yeah, great. Thanks for the question. Great question. They give the teams, there's 4 teams out of the 8 students, 2-person teams. They work on special projects throughout the entire semester. It really is case dependent on the type of evidence in the case and the case facts and whatnot. So as a group, we determined what special projects were really, going to be valuable for this case. So all of the teams, they divvied up according to kind of their backgrounds and kind of areas of expertise, so to speak, that each of them have. With Aiden being a cyber security background, and Stina, forensic biochemistry. We have students that are forensic anthropology students. So they did special projects such as a detailed timeline, processing photography, the forensic anthropology component of the case. One of the special projects included a victimology, processing transcripts of recordings in the case, DNA evidence, news media information, genealogy, GIS mapping component of the case, and a name photo relationship chart, which was really helpful. So all these special projects, it really culminated in a final presentation that was in a secure area given to the state police officials. So it was an awesome job. They knocked it out of the park for sure. Absolutely.
I would just say, when my daughter said that was a pretty nerve-wracking experience for them to make their presentation, because there's all the detectives and state police or whatever it was. So it was a really good experience. So I don't know if you had the same
Oh, yes.
belief. It was just very nerve-wracking, she said, but she had so much fun on the programs.
I'd like to say that this kind of program is a good way of getting firsthand experience in real matters. Like for criminal justice students, I'd say at the least, there's not many instances, especially in the UP, where you can get hands-on actual research work that expands your opportunities, expands your ability and your knowledge and your ability to organize, have patience, communicate, interviewing, but it's a real interview in front of a panel. This is a good opportunity for students to be able to expand their skills that they've taken away from the criminal justice program.
Are there questions?
I have a quick comment. Shout out to the CJ department and to Chris, and Chris is kind of modest. He spent 25 years with the state police. I think the last, how many years at the crime lab?
12.
12 years as a polygraph examiner.
Yeah.
So, we're lucky to have him here, and the students are lucky to have him. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. So I'd be remiss if I didn't make a few acknowledgements, just of course, the support of the entire criminal justice department. We have an awesome team led by Professor Bob Hanson and our secretary, Nikki Lohr, who's amazing. This would not have happened without the full support of our entire department. Everybody had a hand in this. So, and then of course, to all the Michigan State Police detectives that we worked with, that some of them have to go unnamed because of the case. We don't want to divulge, any aspect of where this case originates from. So, and then the various specialists who came up, there was a retiree from MIOC who came up, drove up here and presented to our class, gave a great presentation, specialized area. And then of course, lastly, with us here today in the back is Detective First Lieutenant Paul Campbell, who is the State Police 8th District Task Force Commander, who I'd like to thank for his efforts in truly developing, bringing this to us about a year ago for this cold case partnership with Northern. So thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Great. We're grateful for this opportunity for our students. So this concludes our presentation. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Any other, we're good. Thank you so much. It was a great presentation, great opportunity for you guys, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
And we do have some name tags with our cold case team emblem on them for all of you. So we personalize. We do have some information here about the recent news publications up here for everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really great to see you.
With that, do we have, anybody else have anything? Well, then, meeting adjourned.
Perfect.
Sorry, I stepped.